Grab your favorite alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, drink responsibly, do not drink and drive, and join us for the latest episode of Why Complain When You Can Whine. Everything in this podcast is purely for entertainment and psychoeducational purposes only. Enjoy! Welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless. Join us as we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine or any other beverage, non-alcoholic, alcoholic of your choice.
I promise I'm going to bring wine.
It could be anything, but it doesn't sound as good. Why complain when you can drink?
Coffee?
It sounds, yeah, we just sound like if it's drink, we just sound like we're looking for an excuse to drink, which I mean, kind of we are, but you know, anyway, I am Dr. Jody Lorman, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California. And tonight I am drinking a rosé that I bought because the bottle is so pretty.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh,
that is my whole reason for buying, is the bottle is so pretty.
Okay, you need to save that bottle because my business name is Essentially Blossomed. So save that bottle. I love that.
And it's a Le Rosé ILE, so Isle, I guess, de CONAS. CONAS?
Interesting.
2023 is I've had it once before and I liked it. So what does it say? 20% Grenache Gris, 20%, 25% Grenache Noir, 20% Caladoc, 15% Pinot Gris, and 15% Sin Salt.
Oh, Senso. Yeah, so that's, again, if you're looking at a rosé, these grapes, all they're doing is keeping it on their skins for just a brief amount of time, so it gives it that blush color.
Says this unique Mediterranean blend is succulent with a delicate tongue-tingling zest. Bursting with flavors, this rosé can be served as a pre-dinner drink or paired with salmon, teriyaki, zucchini, carpaccio, or Mediterranean salad.
That sounds delicioso.
I am pairing it with my glass, my cup, that says, well, I'm a doctor, so let's just assume I'm right.
Heck, I wish I was able to have that title. That's so funny.
So,
gotta girl.
Doesn't get you anything though, but it's okay. Next, you.
And I am licensed therapist from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Brianne Burry, who feels very honored that I get to do these lovely podcasts with Dr. Jody Lorman.
Thank you, because I feel honored that you were doing these with me. I'm making such a mess right here. I'm making noise, sorry, because I'm putting in my little security straw.
And this evening, or it's not evening, it's late afternoon, we're on the same time zone here, but I'm actually just having coffee just because I've got some stuff I've got to do later and I need to stay awake and I'm very tired.
Oh, I've only poured, I have to do little pours so I can do more little pours so it looks like I'm drinking a lot, but they're just little pours, so that way I feel like I'm drinking but I'm not. Excellent. So tonight, we are going to discuss the wonderful and lovely trauma bond.
Yes. This topic, if you guys have watched some of our previous stuff and talking about narcissism, and is something that I've experienced in recent years of, I should say recent times of my life. Working as a therapist or not, I somehow wound up in a relationship where I was severely trauma bonded. So if I ever decided to go for my full PhD, this is something I think I would be focusing my dissertation and my doctoral on, which would be trauma bonding and the research and the psychology behind it, because it is the hardest thing I have ever had to break and get out of. And in fact, Dr. Lorman helped me with that, believe it or not. Yeah, just with it, we've had some discussions around it. And again, it's becoming more of a common and popular term that a lot of people are able to relate to. You know, it's interesting. I'm listening to a book right now called Exaholics, where people are struggling to get past relationships. And this is also the aftermath of a trauma bond. Just because you break a trauma bond and get out doesn't mean that you've actually, or you've gotten out of the relationship doesn't mean you've broken the bond. You can still spend years ruminating and obsessing about this person and what does that really relate to. So I'll let Dr.
The
Lorian?
actual trauma bond does break when you leave, but the emotional attachment and stuff, that just doesn't disappear. So that's the thing. It's like you've broken the trauma bond by leaving, and I'll get into what a trauma bond is and everything. You break it by leaving, but the emotional stuff, just because you're physically out of something, doesn't end. And so when you've had a trauma bond, you have to go through the almost like a debriefing, like in a cult. This is a little extreme, but like in a cult, you have to be debriefed. You're out of the cult now. You're out of it. But now you have to kind of regroup and get back into society.
Well, it's the healing from the psychological damage and the addiction. And just because you've broken the bond per se by getting out, what I'm saying is that the healing process, you're not really past it if you're still ruminating. And I know many people that have been trauma bonded, and you become trauma bonded more so in every dysfunctional relationship you get into. It's harder to break these bonds. And when you get out, the rumination can linger for, and the obsession and not being able to move on can linger for a long time due to the psychological damage of losing oneself.
Right. So what is a trauma bond? I first want to say that codependency and trauma bond are not the same thing.
Okay, that's very good.
People use them interchangeably, not the same thing. Also, people use codependency as, well, I'm codependent. The thing is, codependency is relationship specific. So you can be codependent in a relationship, but that doesn't mean you're codependent for life. And codependency is enabling somebody else's poor, negative, harmful behavior. So when you're enabling them, and your whole relationship and life and being in that relationship is to make them happy and to allow them to continue their negative behaviors, like enabling, you become codependent. You lose yourself in the person. So that's why people think that codependency and trauma bond are the same thing.
No,
But they're not.
But they usually coexist together.
Yes.
They
You
can
can have one without the other, but often you have them both.
Yes, you have them both. I mean, really what you're doing when you are trauma bonded and the psychological trap that you're in, you don't want to be in the relationship, but you can't leave. And so you are enabling their poor behavior by staying in the relationship, which is codependency.
And when you hear about like tough love, like stop giving them money for their habit, stop allowing them to crash on your couch, you know, because they're spending all their money on drugs and stuff. That's enabling. Now, if you're in a relationship and you keep allowing that kind of stuff, that's also codependent. Trauma bond, a trauma bond is a powerful, very, very powerful and unhealthy attachment to a person that is causing you harm. Now, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship. It can also be any relationship where a person is causing you harm and you have this unhealthy and powerful attachment. So Stockholm syndrome is a form of trauma bond.
That's right. But they are different. Do you want to different or explain the differentiation there?
Again, you can have a trauma bond that's not Stockholm syndrome. But Stockholm syndrome is an example of a trauma bond.
It is a form of a trauma bond, right? And in the words of Dr. Patrick Carnes, these are betrayal bonds that are built. So Stockholm syndrome was something that was coined what year? Back in the 70s, I believe, in Stockholm, Sweden, by these there was a bank robbery, and these robbers, and they, you know, at gunpoint took these hostages in, and they were in this hostage situation for days. And the victims wound up developing an attachment to
empathy,
their captors, right? That they were defending their captors. Once they were taken out of, they were no longer in the hostage situation, they had developed this bizarre attachment to their captors where they didn't want them to be punished. And this is based on the research of Stockholm syndrome. It's a way to survive, because there's so much fear, especially when there's violence involved. So anybody that's been abducted, kidnapped, or have been taken against their will, and there's a threat of impending death or doom or harm physically, a person will then become so submissive in order to survive, they wound up seeing any sort of kindness that's shown to them within this dynamic as a positive thing, and they develop an attachment with them. Am I correct on
And
this?
that's where, yeah, and that's where this is a trauma bond develops when someone's source of support is their abuser. A trauma bond can develop because that person starts to rely on their abuser to fulfill their emotional needs.
Exactly. But when we're talking about survival, when it comes to when in a relationship, yes, survival emotionally, but not necessarily physically, Stockholm syndrome is very much something that is such a bizarre mechanism because you are becoming attached to somebody who could kill you, and you
And
develop feelings for
yeah,
them because they show their little bits of positive or their intermittent reinforcement of kindness to the victim. They're like, oh, they're a nice person, and in order to survive, I'm just going to abide by everything. And then
yeah.
they develop these feelings or attachment. Whereas in a abusive relationship, which I've been in a few times in my life, in particular, the love bombing is the positive reinforcement,
So
right?
let me read this because this is exactly what you're saying, and you can
Yeah.
comment on it.
Oh,
A trauma bond can develop when there is a real threat of danger from the abuser. It
yeah.
can develop after periods of abuse followed by kindness and remorse. That honeymoon period that lulls the person into a false sense of trust and love and security, and then the cycle starts back again.
It's the abuse cycle.
So
Yeah.
that's what you were just saying. And it can happen when a person is isolated from others and others' perspectives. So no
Mhm.
one is telling you what is going on, basically, to pull you out of it. You're in it, you're relying on this person.
Mhm.
And so you start to, like you were saying too, like you empathize with them. You start to try to find the good things, and then you latch onto those, and then it goes around and around and
Right.
around.
Yeah. You
Um,
hold on to the breadcrumbs. Yep.
And it happens when a person feels there's no way out of a relationship.
Mhm.
So what you were just saying, and this is why I wanted to say this to then let you continue, because you're like, oh, you're hitting on everything I'm going
Yeah,
to say.
I
But
know.
I want to point all those out so then you can also talk about them like you were talking about. So sorry to
No,
interrupt,
no, no,
guys,
no, no,
but
this is good. So with that, we don't digress and jump all over the map, having you describe exactly what this is and where people can become confused. Now, to the average person who has not been in a destructive, toxic, or emotionally damaging relationship or abusive relationship, will have a very hard time understanding a trauma bond. They will not be able to necessarily empathize. I can say from my personal experience, my entire family, and I'm a therapist, but so is my sister, they don't understand it. They've never been in, other than my childhood, but a toxic relationship. So trauma bonding can actually happen with a parent, can happen with a friend. It doesn't have to be a romantic partner. If you look at childhood trauma and you have to attach to that caregiver, you can develop a trauma bond with a parent,
oh,
right?
yeah.
Because it can be intermittent reinforcement, positive, because what it is the person becomes these three things, right? They are the source of exploitation, danger, and pain. But they also are the person and the source of safety, right? Survival. It's not safe. It's a false illusion of safety. But again, this is the intermittent reinforcement, and love is what you know love to be,
Mm-hmm.
connection. So this is where it's completely paradoxical and it's such a contradictory, and why it becomes such a cementing bond is because you then look for the person who's hurting you and causing you the pain to take away the pain they've caused.
It's they're your oddly enough abuser and your rescuer.
Yeah, they're your abuser and your rescuer again, right? Stockholm syndrome, like it kind of, but again, in a relationship. Now, I had never ever experienced this until recently. And the symptoms of
Oh,
being in a trauma bond.
yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
give you the signs of the trauma
yeah,
bond in a minute. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. No, you go ahead, Jody,
Hmm.
if you want to read them out. The
Because then
biggest
we,
one for me was literally hating the person I was with and not being able to leave. I didn't even like him.
yeah.
I don't even think I was in love with him. Like I had moments of whatever, but there was something he was feeding me that I couldn't get out. So if you want to
And
go,
so when I read each one, and then we can talk about each one as I'm telling you.
yeah.
The one of them is, so if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, that
Mhm.
either sounds like me,
Mhm.
or you know someone and it starts to click. Now you know what it is.
Mhm.
One is covering up or making excuses for the abuser.
Mm-hmm.
They were just tired. He didn't mean to hit me. He was aiming and I just happened to be in the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Codependent is too.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole, I am allowing this person's negative, bad, harmful, toxic behavior. I keep allowing it by covering it up or making excuses.
Justifying it. Mm-hmm.
Agreeing with the abuser regarding the abuse. Now, how many times have you heard, if only you stopped yelling at me, I would not have done that. If you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where also covering up and making excuses and agreeing with the abuser. You know what? Honestly, I did get in his face. I have that bad habit. When I'm upset, I'll get in his face. That still doesn't justify punching you in the eye.
No.
No, he wouldn't have done that. Honestly, he talks emotionally and just ended up hitting me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Again, justifying and then blaming yourself, becoming like gaslighting yourself, blaming yourself.
But that's a huge, agreeing with the abuser. I have heard this so many times in some form or another, where someone turns around and says, well, I was annoying, or I was in their face, or you know what? I shouldn't have stayed out late. I didn't text. Doesn't
Yeah.
my fault.
Yeah. You know, though, what that sounds like to me, and maybe you can describe the difference before, and I don't want to digress, but is battered women syndrome is also a form of trauma bonding.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
same thing. And battered women who've been in severely abusive relationships will do this. But I shouldn't have said this, and I shouldn't have yelled, or I shouldn't have said, and they blame themselves for the abuse.
Yeah.
And it's so sad.
You hear so many times, well, they had a bad day at work.
Mm-hmm.
I should have had dinner on the table.
Mm-hmm. See, I've never experienced something like that. I always knew right from wrong. But when you're severely abused, and usually when physical abuse is involved, and you're again fearing for your, you get to the point where you have no sense of self left, that you literally will then really blame yourself. You'll take on and you'll agree with the abuser that you were at fault for what they've done to you. That's severe.
Especially, you've probably heard this. You even, I think, said this, because I think and I don't like to use absolutes, but I think every single person that I have talked to that was in a toxic relationship, especially with an NPD, has said, every single person has said some form of, but maybe I'm the narcissist. Maybe I was the toxic one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you were questioning whether you're the toxic one, the odds are pretty damn high that you're not.
No,
because the toxic one doesn't give a shit.
No, they don't. Every single person I've had come to me as a therapist saying, am I the narcissist? I'm like, because you asked that question, chances are 99.9999999% you're not.
Yeah.
My ex calls me a narcissist all the time, my ex-husband. You're the epitome. And again, they're just projecting everything about themselves onto you. They don't see it within themselves. But if you actually question whether you're a narcissist or not, because they really don't think there's anything wrong with them.
And I'm not going to say that's the absolute or not, because I even did a video on this before, but it's a very good sign.
Yeah. And
that if you're asking,
yes,
you're not.
No, you're not. And the last relationship I was in, based on all of what I do and what I work, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just so embarrassing that I'm stuck in this situation where I work with recovery for NPD and I'm with a person who is full-blown NPD again. And that's what was so tricky and why I hid it from the world, is because of what I do. And yet I'm stuck in this dynamic, but I'm fairly transparent. And again, I like to admit truth, and that just because I do what I do doesn't make me immune to, it was a very good learning experience, because in my marriage, I didn't go through trauma bonding. This guy, I did. And he said, you have narcissistic traits too. Or he would say, okay, I'm a narcissist, so what? That's just who I am. They don't give
That's
a
what
fuck.
my ex said.
They
Okay.
don't give a fuck. They literally don't give a shit. So it's
Yeah.
if they
What
if they
about
do
it?
admit, they're like, yeah, okay, and what, and so what?
Yeah.
There's no initiative to change, right?
Because
Mhm.
why? I mean, they are very self-loathing, can't stand themselves.
No,
But
no,
the
they.
ability to change is like,
What is the most common phrase used by a narcissist when you bust them for doing shitty things and they actually have that moment where they admit what they are? Do you know what it is?
I
You
don't
will
know.
never hear a more common phrase from a narcissist than "I'm a piece of shit."
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, are you talking about like my ex used to always say, I'm just a piece of shit.
I'm just a piece
World
of shit.
hates me. I'm
The
just a
world, yeah,
piece of shit.
I'm a
World's
shitty
against
person.
me.
The world is against me. Woe is me, victim, victim, victim. I'm a
Yeah.
piece of shit. But they're speaking truth, and then they go back to deflecting right away,
I'm
right?
a piece of shit, but
Hmm.
I'm also awesome.
Yes,
And I wouldn't
yes,
be a piece of shit if
yeah,
you did not do the things that you did that make me act like a piece of shit.
piece of shit. Exactly.
Like,
I can't help it. I'm a sex addict. That was the last relationship I was in. Maybe we'll do another podcast if you guys are interested on sex addiction and narcissism. We'll save
yeah,
that from time. But so
they,
back to trauma bonding.
there's because the two things popped in my head when you said the most common things that they say. And it was one of them was I'm a piece of shit, and the other one is you're psycho, my ex is psycho,
Yeah, you're
everybody
crazy.
else is psycho. Yeah, some form of
Mm-hmm.
that.
And
So
at least I know I tried with every ounce of my being in this relationship, and I was so whatever. And I can walk away feeling good about myself when they're gaslighting you and they know they're cheating on you and they've cheated on you and they're deliberate, they're lying to themselves and they believe it.
my ex was like, you have no idea. You don't even know how much I've sacrificed
Oh yeah, same
in
thing.
this relationship. And I was
I've
like,
changed so much.
what the
All my
fuck
friends
do you
say I've changed.
sacrifice?
Yeah, I know. All my friends say I've changed. Oh, I know. So
um,
the symptoms of trauma bonding.
okay, unwilling or reluctance to leave the abuser. And a big part of that, I think, also comes from they have this tendency to, no one can make you anything.
No.
No one can make you feel anything. It's our choice, but people can influence and we can influence people. So they have done enough gaslighting, mind fucking, influencing us to believe, sadly, that we are better with them than without them. In the sense of sometimes they do make it that way that they have control over friends, finances, they've isolated us.
Oh,
They
yeah,
have
totally.
all the money. So the legal abuse, the physical abuse, the psychological abuse, the financial abuse, all of that kind of stuff. They have taken, and in some very literal sense for a lot of people, but hopefully not everyone in a relationship, but they make you dependent on them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is psychological dependence or actual literal financial housing and all that dependent, it doesn't matter because in some way you are not going to be, and how many times have they told you this? You're not going to be anything without me.
That
Or
was my ex-husband.
yeah,
That was my ex-husband financially. Like I couldn't live without him. And he even admitted not even 6 months ago, just admit it. You fucked up. You made the biggest mistake of your life. It just admit the fact that you were way better off with me than without. And he's engaged to be married.
and oh god, I just found, and I we're going to do a Q&A. Guys, if you have questions about MPD, please email
Yeah.
them because we have
Yeah.
a bunch of Q&A to do. But
Yeah.
one of the
There
things that I was looking back and I totally forgot about this, that I went to court with my ex in October. That was the last time I spoke to him because I didn't speak to him before that, but I had to speak to him in court. And then I wrote down and I was answering someone's question and I reread it and I didn't even remember. But in November, when he was already living with this other person, he was texting me, I can't believe that we're not together. I can't believe the holidays are coming up. They're not the holidays without you. We're not spending them together. It's like, you have someone else in your bed now.
Oh, I know.
I never responded to them. And I honestly totally forgot until I saw that, what I was reading from a few years ago. And I was like, oh my God, now I remember it though. But, and how come you won't respond to me and talk to me anymore? And it's like, and I wrote down in my own thing, dude, no response is a response. But I never, ever, ever responded.
No, no.
But it's like, yeah, it's like you're sleeping next to another person, texting, saying, I can't believe we're not together.
Because you've shut them out and they can't handle it. They
No.
can't handle it. It's the bit that causes the biggest injury to them. Like we said in our last podcast, how do you beat a narcissist? Render them insignificant. And so when you do that and you don't give them a response, it absolutely drives them mad and they can't handle it. Because the last thing my ex recently said to me was, I just don't want you to hate me. After finding out the infidelity, the cheating, the womanizing, the misogyny, like all of it, all day long. And all he said in the end was, please don't hate me. It's about them and how they feel.
And the
Right?
interesting thing is, though, is like,
Mm.
yeah, I won't hate you because I don't want to have any feelings. Apathy beats
Anything worse.
everything.
Again, I don't care. You just,
Right.
when you say you don't care and you render them like, I don't even care to hate you because I just don't fucking care about
That's a
you.
feeling.
I'll kill them. It'll kill them. But what I wanted to say when Jody, what you're saying was, nobody can make us feel anything. And I remember this is like, I can't remember the psychologist where this kind of concept or theory came from, because, we have to be able to be in control of our emotions and our feelings and such. But when it was interesting because it caught me off guard when I heard this and I thought, that's such bullshit. What do you mean people can't make you feel something? When somebody abuses you and hurts you and does things that obviously causes you pain, you have an emotional response to hurtful things. They can't make you feel anything. Part of me begs to differ with that because, again, we can choose how we react, right? But we can still feel the hurt feelings. So again, when a narcissist or somebody who's abusive loves to fucking use that, they love, oh, well, I'm not responsible for your feelings. I can't make you feel anything, is again a way for them to negate responsibility for their actions towards you. Okay, fine. You can't control or you can't make me feel anything, but you can damn well control how you respond to me or the way that you speak to me, and you can take accountability for your actions that are poor.
But see, that's the thing. I can influence you to feel the way that I want you to feel. I can do things that influence you based on, but we have our choices based, feelings are not right or wrong. Let me tell you, however you feel, it's valid.
How your reaction though is
right.
Is what you choose to do and how you choose to respond.
But our feelings come from our morals, our values, our opinions, our past, our experiences, all of those things that from day one to the day that it happens form, that's why someone can pass away and one person can be sad, horrible, awful feeling. And the other person's like, yes, I'm so happy this is finally over. So their death didn't make us feel. We chose based on how that person treated us, how we felt about that person, how we felt about death, whatever, to choose. It's an instant thing. I'm not saying we sit and go, I'm going to choose this today. But when someone, a toxic person, let's say, when you get to a point in the relationship, when you are done, when you are ready to walk out and leave, your feelings about what they do change because we chose to not give the shit that we gave before. When we're in the relationship, we do care. And because we care, that influences, how we feel.
Right.
So again, I'm not saying they can't make you feel like I'm going to make you mad by saying this. It's like, no, because of all of our history together and everything I've been through, when you say that, it's going to influence me to be mad.
Or
because
hurt.
of everything attached to it.
Yeah.
But I can also turn around and go, well, fuck that. I'm not going to be mad. I don't care. So you didn't make me mad. You tried.
Again, a mindset, right? When you're good at cognitive behavioral therapy and you're good at catching yourself, or you have self-worth, it's like, again, when somebody says, okay, Brie, you're covered in purple polka dots. Well, am I? No. So if they say that, who cares? Like it,
Right.
like I don't have to be offended or pissed off or mad or angry because it's not true. And I know it's not true. But when you're in a dynamic with a person that there's feelings and emotions and an attachment there, and they're saying horrible things to you and, calling you names or being sexually degrading or demeaning you, and, you've been demeaned your whole life in various different
Mhm.
ways, it is influencing hurt feelings.
Yes, and they know that.
And
Okay,
they,
Bree, let's say, and I hope you don't have any issues with your hair. I hope not.
no,
But
God, no.
okay,
No,
but
fine.
let's say that you did. Let's say you had alopecia and that was a wig. And I
Mhm,
knew it, but no one else did. And I want to get you
mhm,
upset, angry. I want to trigger you.
mhm,
So I say, how's the hair today?
mhm,
Kind of looking a little raggedy
mhm.
because you have a history.
Mhm.
I know that's going to make you upset.
It's punitive. You're doing it
Yeah.
punitively. Yeah.
Now, if you didn't give a rat's ass, I thought you did, but you really don't, that's
Mhm,
not going to make you upset. That's not going to trigger you.
mhm. But let's be realistic here. 90% of the population, right? If
Mm-hmm.
they somebody's going to pull on strings that have truth, it's just again like when people make cruel jokes. Oh, I was just kidding, and then they gaslight you and you say it was just a joke. I'm
No,
just kidding, but there's truth there, and they're using it against you, and they're
to
using it
try to
punitively
get you
to try
upset.
to get
Yeah.
you upset because I have an emotional response to that, and for them to turn around and say, "Well, I'm not responsible for your feelings. I can't make you feel anything." Mm,
But a good way to respond to that when you get healthier mental well-being wise is no, you're not responsible. And you know what? I don't really give a shit.
yeah. Again, when you've done the work and it's like
Right.
Teflon water off a duck's back, right? It doesn't seem to affect you because you've worked on your self-esteem. But again, when you're working with
Inside
people
of it, yes.
and you're working with people who have low self-esteem and who
Yeah.
have, let's go to eating disorders, for example. We've got major, body dysmorphia and different things, or women do in general. Somebody triggers you by saying, Jody, you're looking a little whatever, you know, fuck.
It's
As
still
much as
my
you would love
choice to be,
it's it,
to obsess
well,
about it.
but
It's
right, to
not, it's
respond to upset, but think about the feelings, right?
Mhm.
Again, about what those feelings are going to be. Again, you have to have a pretty strong ability to cognitively take yourself out of
Yeah.
that instantaneous emotional, cortisol filled whatever reaction to be able to respond rationally in your brain and go, they're doing that deliberately, but fuck man, does that suck because that does trigger me.
Yes. And that's where it is. Where I'm saying is feelings are not wrong. You
No,
are
they're not.
not wrong for feeling whatever way you choose. But
Hmm.
recognizing that I can change my feelings. It's not easy. It
No,
does
it's
take
not.
therapy, it does take work, it does take cognitive restructuring, cognitive reframing, and all that. But what I want to stress is that it is possible because people do not think that
No, they don't.
it is possible. So
Mhm.
they continue to with the
It's the mindset.
cycles.
It's the mindset. Yeah, it
I
is.
have had clients that have said to me literally after like really doing some cognitive reframing, and they're like, oh my God, I did cognitive reframing in their relationship. And they're like, do I have to do this like all the time?
Yeah.
And it's like, yes,
Yeah,
but
you do.
it gets a lot easier on a lot of ways. Like out of 100 times, you may have to like a couple of
Well,
times, but
yeah.
it'll be natural. You won't even notice yourself doing it. And
Right.
then months later, I have those very same clients going, so I did this cognitive reframing, or, so I was telling myself, maybe if I did this instead, and I'm like, see,
Yeah.
see,
It, it's again, it's rewiring the brain, and it just takes
Mhm.
a lot of work. And especially if you've been, you're struggling. I have a friend who is really having a hard time. She does a lot of the rumination, especially with this trauma bonding stuff. And the cognitive behavioral stuff for her is the hardest because she's so used to being on autopilot. She just gets
Yeah,
fixated and impulsive, and she cannot get her brain to shut off. She just can't. No matter how many times we've worked on different strategies to, this is what you can say instead. We need to reframe it to this. We need to, she just, again, unless you really want to do the work to change, you have to become mindful. And it's hard to do that when you live in a world of dissociation and you dissociate. So again,
yeah,
the more trauma you had, And the more dysfunction you've had in your life, the harder it is to get out of a dissociative autopilot state and be in the conscious mind rather than living in the subconscious, which most of us do.
And dissociation is a defense mechanism. And so that's why it's so hard, because we put up this defense so that I don't have to really be in the
You
present.
check out, you mentally check out.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really scary when you tell someone to be in the present.
Yeah.
Because the present has always been, in my recent memory, a very scary thing.
Yeah,
so
it is.
it's kind of a deprogramming. That's the word I was thinking of when you get out of a call.
Yes.
It's a deprogramming.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with therapy. When it gets the scariest and the most uncomfortable, is when the best stuff happens.
It's happening. Well, that's because your vulnerability is there, right? And you're facing the shittiest, grossest, ugliest parts of ourselves, or that, so we think, right? And that's what we're doing. Okay, back on trauma bonding.
Okay. Because I want to say one more thing before we do that. When you go to therapy, I liken it when I tell my clients, it's almost like you have this closet that you have shoved so much stuff in there that it's bursting. Like if you walk by the door and bump it, it's gonna explode. So you've kind of learned to go around it and nobody goes near it. It's like got caution tape all over it and you don't even know what's in there anymore. So when you go to therapy, you open that closet door and everything spills out. That's the scary, for some people, the scary part, because you've spilled everything out. But it's also the most fun, best part, if you will, because then you can say, why was I carrying that around? Why was I carrying that around? What the hell is that? And you can now get rid of what you don't need, reshuffle everything nicely, and have a usable closet that you're not afraid of anymore.
That's a great analogy. It's a really good analogy.
So go to therapy. Okay, the next one is you're unhappy but feel unable to end things. And again, that's that bond.
Yeah, guys, it is the biggest mindfuck. I will just say I've never, ever been in such a state of ambiguity, basically just ambiguous, like one side of me knowing, the rational, logical side being like, and it was very different. I wasn't like your typical person who was very unaware of what was going on because of what I do and what I work in. That's why it was even more frustrating, is because I knew better. I knew better. I knew what I was doing was so wrong, and it was humiliating and embarrassing. And it made me feel like an imposter in my own job, because I'm sitting here going, here I am helping all these other people and I can give them all this advice. But if they only knew I was stuck in this shit situation where this person is the most toxic, narcissistic, misogynistic, fucking womanizing, cheating, lying, like pathological liar, that I literally disliked him so much, but could not get out because he gave me the breadcrumbs that I never got as a kid. And I will just say from my own experience, just so if any of you can relate to this, but my parents, my dad was completely detached. He wasn't around emotionally. He was not present ever. My parents and him had the most dysfunctional, toxic relationship. And my mom is a borderline, hardcore borderline / narcissist. So I had a cruel, abusive mother. And then I was bullied at school. So if I go back and I can understand exactly why I was tied to this guy, because he gave me all the physical affection I didn't get from my parents. I got it from neither. I was never told I was loved. I was never hugged. I was never kissed. And yes, there's lots of other children out there that had it a lot worse than I did. And I know that I had clothes on my back. I had food in my mouth. I had a roof over my head. Christmases, my mom did great at Christmas. She did good at birthdays because she had to keep up the appearances with the world around us, but also like giving us stuff, but then had no emotional capability of being there for the real things that we needed, which was proper attunement, attachment, all of the things. And so because I never got this love from my parents, and that was the one thing I craved my entire life, was this affection and love. And this guy gave it to me. He knew exactly how to give me the affection, the innocent affection, the childlike affection, the kiss on the forehead.
Did you tell him about this, about your parents and your past?
I did. And that was my biggest fucking mistake, because he knew. And he also was very affectionate with his kids. And I saw that before he knew anything about me. So I knew he had that ability, but he was also a sex addict. The guy was absolutely obsessed with sex. So, which didn't work for us obviously in the end. But I mean, these bits of innocent affection that he gave me, not sexual affection and not sexual attention, innocent, childlike,
That's what you
calling me
needed. That's what
honey,
you
calling
needed.
me
Yeah.
sweetheart, hugging me, kissing me on the forehead. How do you feel? Like, do you feel safe in my arms? Like all these things.
Did he
And
say that? Would he say that to you?
yeah, he would. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020. Do not beat yourself up. Do not.
No, it's
And
not that. It's
okay.
just that again. And that's good. And so I don't apologize for crying. I'm just going to say it right out there to everybody who's watching me. I'm very vulnerable and I'm very comfortable being vulnerable.
Don't apologize.
And it's real. That's what got me. And even though it was few and far between, he was just like, we fit so well together. And we did physically, like we did. And that's what would get me back every single time. After the degrading, disgusting comments and the fighting and the insidious jealousy, or just this like patronizing clapping or calling me,
Oh,
stupid, or like, oh, and it
I
just,
hear this and I can't help but want to tell everybody context is so important because we can look back and like I hear what he said and think, oh, right there. But it's all in context. It's not in a vacuum. He wasn't doing things and then say, oh, be safe. He wasn't great and then said that. It's all this shit's going on besides that one word or that one sentence.
yeah, exactly.
So we can look back in 2020 hindsight and say, oh my God, why didn't I notice that? But it's because it wasn't just by
But I did know what he was doing. And this is exactly what was
oh,
mind fuck, is that I knew, but I didn't care because it was feeding that
mm,
wounded child that has never healed. That I needed it. It was like I was starving and it was like I needed to get my fix. There was my dopamine hit. There was the drug addiction right there. It was like I knew exactly what he was doing because he's narcissistic. I knew I could be vulnerable and tell him the honest truth, and he was going to play up on that. He also needed that. He was a very affectionate person. And he also loved that. And the more that I would
yeah.
shower him with that or with sex, he was happy.
Oh
But
yeah, because you're supplying his
I'm
needs.
supplying his
Yeah.
needs, right? But he knew how to play that. But that was the shitty part, is that I knew that that's what he was using for intermittent reinforcement. But it didn't matter because, again, it was something that I'd never had. And I was with a man for 13 years, my husband, who didn't touch me, literally, or did. It was like a robot. He didn't kiss me. He didn't hug me. There was no holding hands. Like, it was just like being with an alien. And so because yeah, it was just a need, and I knew, but this was why it was so hard to break.
Because
And why
that's what they
it
do.
was
They're
so,
going to find you're most vulnerable. And even if you know that's what they're doing,
yeah,
because you need it, we need it, we're craving it, we want
yeah.
it. It's like,
Well,
let's
human
say,
connection, we all need this as human beings. It's part of
yeah,
the human condition. So it's not out of the norm for us to want that.
I know this makes you feel good.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to make you feel loved and warm and safe in a healthy relationship. I'm doing this because I know this will keep you here.
Yeah, it does. And that's exactly what he did. He knew it was keeping me there. So he would, and because he couldn't control all the rest of his shit. So that was the most, I've never felt so stuck in my life of living in a world of going, I know right from wrong and I know what I'm doing is wrong, but fuck, I can't get out. And I literally am terrified of the pain I'm going to go through when I break this, because then I'm going to lose that affection and that love, or that those breadcrumbs, because that's all it really
Yeah.
was. It was, and I could get that in any other relationship potentially, but it was like, again, it was the fear of also the unknown of breaking a trauma bond because of the abandonment issues and because of being alone. But when I finally broke it, it was like a light switch. And I remember calling Dr. Lerman and Jody and being like, fuck, I did it. Like, I don't, and it's like, literally, I don't even feel anything right now. And I don't think I felt anything for about a week, and then I had a couple moments of finding out some more stuff, and it triggered the shit out of me. And I had my cry and I got really upset and I was feeling that gross pain. And then I went over it, and I'm just going through the normal phases of a breakup, which is
Yeah.
like pockets
Miss
of
the
loneliness,
potential.
you
You
know,
wish you were
or
different.
just like, you know, I miss certain things about the dynamic, but
Mhm.
it was so unhealthy. And, but man, I'm not kidding you. I begged and pleaded. I was reaching out to several people being like, fucking just, it's like I need to go into rehab. Get me into a rehabilitation center, take my fucking phone away and delete and block his number and just force me to heal. That's what it felt like I needed to do. It's that much of an addiction that and not being able to get out, but knowing I needed to. My
Mhm.
body physically was failing, right? I was getting sick, I was losing weight, all the things. And my mental health was just, it was brutal. I can just tell you from experience, a trauma bond is the hardest fucking
Yeah.
thing you ever break in your life.
I used to say, well, being with him is better than nothing.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm like, better than being
No.
alone and thinking that, you know, this loneliness that you're going to feel, this big black empty pit.
Yes.
But the more that you find yourself again, and the more that you love yourself, and the more
Yep.
self-esteem that you gain, that black hole isn't there. But this is the contradictory piece of being in a trauma bond is that longer you're with a person who is abusive, you're going to continue to lose more of yourself the longer you stay. And when the more that you lose yourself and your identity, the shell that you are, the more fear you build of leaving that person and not being with them because your identity is completely caught up with that person. You don't even know who you are anymore. And then you feel that big black empty hole or that pit of walking around just being empty. You're
Mhm.
just because there isn't a sense of self left. Every single time you get in an abusive dynamic, this is what happens, right? And so the more that you I don't know what it took. It just was something really small in the end. And I heard him tell his kids, "Oh, is the mom cute?" And that was it. I was out. I was like,
Mhm.
"Fuck, I can't trust you." And this may seem minor to you, but after all the infidelity, the cheating, the lying, and then he tried to gaslight me. And he was like, "Oh, I knew you were listening, so I threw that in there." I was like, "Oh, fuck you. I'm out." And that was it.
When you
But
get to the point when you were out, you were out.
yeah,
My
but it
ex,
was my shred of dignity. It was that last piece that's like, I choose me.
yeah.
I have to love myself more than this piece of crap because I can't even face him right now. There's no way I can continue on in this. It's killing me. Like I'm so done. And then I did. And then
And then
I
when you're
broke it.
out, you realize how much it was killing you. How
Oh my
much you
God, you
were the
do.
way.
And then you start seeing everything more
Yeah.
clearly because of the
Yeah.
cognitive dissonance starts to fade. But I'm telling you, a trauma bond is so paradoxical. It is so, oh, it's just this, you'll feel so torn.
So we got six more. One is you feel physically and or emotionally distressed when you think about leaving.
Yep.
The abuser, this I think anybody in a toxic relationship has probably heard this more than once. The abuser promises to change if they think or hear that you are planning on leaving, but they don't change.
All
I,
in.
ugh,
No,
yeah,
they don't change.
ugh.
I even knew that this guy wouldn't change. It was just pure toxic attachment. That's it.
I kick myself to this day. I remember walking into my ex's work area. I even remember I was wearing gloves because it was freezing cold. I was wearing black and white striped gloves. And I put my hands down. I said, "You need to stop contacting me. Stop calling me. Stop texting me. I am done." And he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I want us to get married." Blah, 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 blah. And I said, "The minute I say yes, you're going to be doing your same shit as always."
Hmm. I know.
And I said yes. And I got
Yeah.
the ring. I still have it.
Oh,
Wrong finger.
wow.
Not on this side. On this side. This is my right hand. I just wear it because I put it on when my anniversary ring broke and I've just left it on since. But it means nothing emotional wise. I picked it out. That's why I like it. But it's sure as shit, as soon as he got me the ring and all that, he started cheating and everything. And I beat myself up enough times on I should have known. They promise, they promise, they promise, they promise, they promise. They never follow through. So,
When I caught Steve cheating, like literally after 3 years, and he'd been sleeping with like 10 other people in the beginning of our like for the first 6 months, and I didn't know when I found out, his first words were, "Let's just go elope. We can get through this. Let's just go get married." After literally, because he knew we got busted. It was like, are you okay? Yeah, let's go get married after I found out that you were screwing half of Vancouver. Sure.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
You use the good days as proof that they care.
Yep.
That's that honeymoon thing. That's that little intermittent breadcrumb reinforcement. The easiest way to get addicted to something, and I'm not talking a bad addiction, I'm talking like golfing, fishing, stuff like that, is intermittent reinforcement. Even sports, your team doesn't win all the time. There's ups and downs. And so, people sit gambling at the slot machine, and this is going to be the next one. They won't walk away, because as soon as they do, they're going to catch a bite.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's why we stay. We stay for the fucking potential.
Yep. For the potential.
Or to good days.
My biggest thing was the validation. Yeah. Just fucking get me. Just understand me. Just agree with me. But the gaslighting and the narcissism was so bad, he would just twist, turn, Darvo my ass all fucking day long. It never, ever, ever worked. Never worked. He even had a baby with me.
But when there's a good, he wanted to have a baby with you, and that's like,
he wanted to have a baby.
On the one sense,
you know what he would say? Because then you're stuck. Then you're stuck with me forever. Like, how much of an entrapment comment is that? Like, oh my God, then you're stuck with me forever.
You want to hear something pretty gross, actually?
Men do this too.
When we were intimate, my ex used to say, "I'm gonna put a baby in you."
Oh yeah, he did the same thing with me.
And I would be like in my head going, "Oh no, the fuck you're not."
No, yeah, no, you're not. Not to mention that's fire.
No, thank you, dude.
No, right? And they do that because then they think this is what you want to hear. Oh my God, they love me. They want to have a baby with me. Oh, blah, blah, blah. No, it's entrapment.
Yeah.
He even admitted, because then you're stuck with me forever.
You're stuck. Yeah. You've always got a connection, no matter
what you want it or
not.
Then they know they can't, they always have to be in your life.
But I mean, so many women, and there's nothing wrong with this in a healthy relationship. You want to have a baby with your partner if you want children.
Of course, if you want that.
So of course, I'm gonna put a baby in you. It's like, oh, it's like, oh, the fuck you are.
No, like, no. To a loving person who really loves you, that's a beautiful sentiment. But to a narcissist who's doing it to entrap you because they need to have you as their consistent supply, along with every other fucking piece of ass out there. Excuse my French.
Yeah. No. God. Yeah. But using the good days as proof, I also know I've talked to enough of my clients that are like, but, and I said, that's potential. There is no potential there.
My biggest problem my whole life is falling in love with potential.
We all do.
Staying in the dream world that, oh, they could, everybody can change. When he said to me, I'm a narcissist, so what? That's just who I am. And I'm happy with who I am. And I'm like, yeah, this guy's never, ever going to be any different. He is, even though he's going to self-sabotage and destruct his entire life, will never seek therapy. And when he did seek therapy the first time we broke up, because I busted him for trying to hit on another woman while we were together in the beginning, he said, oh, I'm going to go to counseling. He went to counseling, but he lied to the counselor.
Very first words out of his mouth, my ex, were a lie.
Yep.
He lied about his date of birth.
Oh my God.
They said, how old are you? And he made himself 3 years younger or 2 years younger or something like that. It's like, I'm like, really? What the fuck? This guy does not care how old you are. He's writing on his form your date of birth. He needs it. And you're fucking lying.
Oh no, they literally are pathological liars. They lie about they don't even know what they lie about. They get caught in a web. Like, it's just
their whole life is a lie.
Their whole life is a lie. That's what narcissism is based on. False sense of self.
You defend the abuse when others express concern. That's the battered woman syndrome too.
That's battered woman syndrome right there. Yeah. I didn't do that. See, I was the one that told people, the odd person, this guy's like this. And then I'd be like, oh my God, now they're going to totally judge me and be like, what are you doing? See, I never defended his bullshit behavior.
I said, well, he's Asperger's, because I truly believed, I was told he was. And Asperger's and narcissism, the difference is Asperger's do not mean to hurt you. There's a social disconnect. They don't gaslight and mind fuck you, but there is social disconnect there. So they don't really
big time
ask and stuff.
Yeah.
And my ex said, I said to him, I used to think that you were Asperger's, and now I know that you're narcissist. And he said, what's the difference? And I said, Asperger's don't want to hurt you. They truly don't.
No.
NPD, they
NPD,
want
they
to
do.
fuck you up.
They want to fuck you up. There's
Said,
intent punitive.
he said, okay, so what do you don't expect any change?
Yeah. They don't have any desire to change because they don't give a shit. They really, there's their lack of empathy right there.
And here's the next one is you keep hoping they'll change and you
Mhm.
keep trusting them. And
Wanting
that
to
goes with that
yes.
potential too.
And because you don't want to hurt anymore and you really want to believe that they're not going to do
Deeply
it
care.
again. They've caused so much pain.
If only they wouldn't lie, if only they wouldn't womanize, if only they wouldn't be cheating, if only they wouldn't be this, if only they wouldn't be that, if only they wouldn't be every single fucking thing that makes them who they are, they would be an awesome person. But all of these things that you listed are exactly who they are. So they
Exactly.
can't not be that. That is who they are.
Became a bit of a dangerous person to him for other people because I'm a therapist. I unfortunately trying to explain why he's the way he is and to fix him. This is the biggest problem about therapists is that when they date toxic people, we try to fix them, right? It's like we literally try to fix them. And that was my biggest problem is that's probably why I stayed for as long as I did and became more trauma bonded is because my bleeding empathetic heart was like, oh, he has abandonment issues. Oh, his dad left and was an alcoholic. His mom's a brutal sadistic narcissist. Like he's got all these abandonment issues and he went through abuse from his mom and his dad didn't want him and this poor 6-year-old boy that just wanted to play with his dad when he came home, but his dad would just drink scotch and watch MASH or rum or whatever it was. My broken, like my, not my broken, but my empathetic bleeding heart. And then I explained this to them. Guess how he played that later on? Well, it's because of my abandonment issues. It's because my dad left me and I just can't help it.
I
I taught him that. He didn't even know that prior. I connected the dots for him and then he used it every time he fucked around.
I want to cry thinking about this, but I used to think because my ex would say, I've never been in a healthy relationship. And I'm like, well, now you are. And he would silent treatment me all the time. And I'm like, come on, we have to communicate. So he would communicate. And I thought, see, we're doing so good. Look at, I got him to communicate. And we went on a vacation. I remember this so distinctly. We were on vacation on a cruise and we were sitting, my friend and him and I, and he was telling her, oh my God, I'm such a better person. I'm such a better person because of her. She's been so great for me. And
That's
I'm
what's
just like, my psychology skills, I didn't use my therapy skills on him, I didn't therapize him or whatever that word would be, but I use techniques to get him to communicate and talk, and it's working. And look, I didn't realize that it was all a fucking act in the first place.
act. Yeah.
All the fucking NPD, and he could communicate if he wanted to. This was all part of silent treatment, discarding, punishment, blah, 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 blah. So when he was a normal person, I thought it was because I did a great job.
And he would tell people that because Steve did the same thing. Oprah's so good for me. She's changed me. Even my friends are telling me, "Oh my God, you're so different, dude. You're so different. You're so that
So
you're
much
not
better.
like." And he's, "Oh yeah, no, she's so good for me." He'd even say it. He's like, You're so good for me." And I'm
Oh,
like,
I'm
"Yeah,
the best thing that ever happened.
yeah." I'm like, "I know I'm good for you. The problem is you're not good for me."
And the shitty thing is, I really did believe that for a while, that I fixed him, if you will. I feel so fucking stupid just even saying that, that I actually legitimately thought.
No, they're just going to use that as part of their facade and their mask and their charade and their charade. Like, I mean, moving forward with other people. Oh, I'm so different now. Oh, I've changed. On Christmas Day, when we were together and I was sleeping in the other room, he actually had the nerve to message an ex that he didn't know that I was in contact with from the last time we broke up. that he'd fucked around on her with another girl. He got busted, and the message went to the other girl, and then they both found out about each other that he was screwing around with them at the same time, unprotected. So they had words with him. And she actually, I found out a week and a half after we broke up, he had messaged her on Christmas saying he was so sorry and he's so different and he's changed and he wants a chance to apologize to her and can they meet. Now she's with somebody else now. And she just didn't respond. She's like, I don't even know how he got in touch. I thought I blocked him off everything. But do you think he told me he did that?
Of course not. Why would he do that?
No, no.
It's totally innocent. Why would I have to tell
I
you
just
that?
apologized, was what he said when it got like, it just was like, it's just so classic.
And the last sign is you protect them by keeping the abusive behavior a secret.
I hid from everyone. I hid from my family. I hid from my friends. The only people that knew was one of my closest friends and you, Jody. Nobody else knew. My sisters didn't know. My parents didn't know.
You want to hear something that
Doesn't know.
I feel is really stupid when I think back is I didn't even realize it was abuse because I honestly thought he was Asperger's. And then I tried to make excuses.
There
And
you
then I
go.
would tell myself when I realized that, oh, fuck. Like my friend would show me texts from her ex who is NPD, and it would be like, oh my God, they have the great big blue book of NPD because these are the exact same scripts.
Yeah.
But my ex is Asperger's, but I would make excuses all the time. I kick myself now that I did because once I really found out, once the glasses came off, I was out. I was done. I was gone. So once I realized what he truly was, I was out. Thank God.
Okay, so here, what's the difference? Oh, so Asperger's is autism, right? And it's a social deficit.
Yeah.
But why does that replicate NPD? Because they're so stuck in their set in their ways.
Because,
And
okay, if you think of
lack of
Sheldon on the
empathy.
Big Bang Theory
Yeah. Oh
initially,
yeah.
you're sitting
That's
in my,
Asperger's.
yeah, you're sitting in my spot. Or like my ex, like the second year we were together, I think it was maybe the first year. On Thanksgiving, he was with his kids. I highly doubt it now. But at the time, he told me he was with his kids. And I sent him this long email about how I'm so happy that we met and we're together and he makes my life good and blah, blah, blah. I'm thankful for him. And he responded with, Happy Thanksgiving. And I was like, okay, it's that social awkwardness of,
Yeah, it's that I know my friend's
yeah,
ex like that, right?
yeah,
Like just clueless and oblivious
yeah.
and just very just odd, quirky words and sayings, right? Where
Like, and he could be Asperger's still. There could be Asperger's. They're not mutually exclusive of the other. So
no.
he could have both. But like what I had back surgery. I fell at work. I've had 3 back surgeries, but before my first back surgery, I was in a world of pain. And
Yeah.
I remember texting him one night about how much pain I was in. I'm so angry about what happened and what I'm going through. And he texts back, barbecuing with the kids.
Oh, so oblivious.
And again, I thought, okay, Asperger's, he's not really getting it. I mean, I had done a lot of reading and research on Asperger's. My son is on the spectrum. He has PDD, but that's different. And Asperger's is still a diagnosis if you were diagnosed prior to 2013.
Yeah, exactly.
After
When it was still an
2013,
umbrella.
it's part of the autism spectrum. But yeah, your disorder doesn't change. You could still
No.
be called Asperger's. If you
Yeah.
choose, you can
Yeah.
also be ASD. So this was like in 2007, 8, 9, or 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And I remember, I'm here crying, texting him and get this text back that says barbecuing with the kids and thinking it's because he's Asperger's, because he
Right.
doesn't understand empathy in the same way. Not that
Mm.
he completely fucking hates empathy and doesn't care, but that there's that disconnect there. I
Yeah.
used to excuse so many things
Mm.
as that. Now I look back and it's like, no, it's that he fucking didn't care at all. And don't put your pain and sadness and expect, I can't, no, I don't like that because they don't like to see you cry. They don't
No, they
like to
don't.
see you hurting. They don't, that all of that is like fucking garlic to a vampire. It's
For an
kryptonite
NPD or for Asperger's?
for MPD.
Yeah. I
For
know.
Asperger's, they just don't understand.
Yeah,
Like,
they don't understand it. Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
so I used to, I didn't realize it was abusive because I thought it was Asperger's. And
Mhm.
once that I like it really clicked,
Registered.
because I was told he was Asperger's, but once it registered that he was MPD, it's like all of the dominoes started falling.
But was he Asperger's as well?
He might be. He might be. Because
Hmm.
I used to teach developmental disabilities to what was called in-service training at the prison. And everybody would comment on how he's off. There's like some socially weird stuff with him. And so, and not in a NPD way. They would, people that just saw him and watched him and whatever. So I think there might be a little spectrum stuff going on, but it's the NPD far surpasses. He's 100% NPD.
Well, you often see NPD with Asperger's. I know lots of people that have both diagnoses,
Oh,
believe it or
so yeah, then he very possibly could.
not.
But I absolutely 100% open up the DSM and they should have his picture.
Oh, I know. I know.
And so once I learned that, once I was like, okay, I can't keep making these excuses of him being Asperger's because now he fucking went on a cruise with his ex
Yeah.
and told me
Oh
his
no,
mom
like there's
thought his
no
dad died.
empathy. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's no empathy.
Asperger's will not say, my dad died, I'm going to the funeral when he's actually on a cruise with his ex.
No,
Asperger's does not do that.
no, no.
That's NPD.
That's NPD. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, the shame is pretty bad and you're isolated, right? So you'll often protect and hide because you just don't know how to get out.
you just said it right there, though. The saddest part of it is the shame,
It's a shame.
is the shame.
Yeah.
Is like,
But
how did
I,
I ever allow myself?
oh, Jody, I can't even tell you. I've never felt so much shame in my life over a situation. And the most freeing part of getting out of it was the fact that I didn't have to hide anymore. I came right out and I was able to say to people, I don't have to hide anymore. I don't have to hide when you ask me how I'm doing, that I feel awful or put on a smile or put on some fake whatever, or that I couldn't even tell people what was really going on in my life because I hid from everyone.
I remember when I posted, we exchanged rings and I posted a really nice picture and whatever about it on Facebook. And some of the comments were, really? Interesting. And I was like, why? And they were like, you don't see the things that you post.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not posting anything bad. It's like, maybe not. But when you talk about how this happened or that happened or whatever happened, I thought it was perfectly okay. You know what I mean? But other people were picking up on it.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing. A lot of times you don't see it. But I mean, I'd already told my family prior some of the stuff, and my mom even witnessed some of the phone calls and how ridiculous he was being. I was sleeping one night with my mom and my kids at my cabin, and because I went to bed after studying, I fell asleep and I had my phone on silent and I didn't answer the phone. He thought that I was off messing around with somebody else. And I was like, no. And he was flipping out at me in the morning. And my mom just looked at me. She's like, hang up the fucking phone. What are you doing? What the hell? Who is this guy? And I was like, but I normally talk to him and I did. There you go. I'm covering up, right? Like I normally, and this is our routine. And it was but it was because he was screwing around the whole time.
Mhm.
So he's just projecting. There's no better indicator than a cheater than somebody that literally accuses you of doing what they're doing when you are not doing it and you've given no indicators of doing so.
My ex one time, he fucking went on a cruise. He admitted it later on that I caught him. But he goes, do these look like lion eyes? Look in my eyes. Do I look
Oh,
like I'm lying?
yeah, I know. He used to laugh at me. He's like, I'm just going to
I
laugh at
knew at that point that he
you.
was lying. I knew after
Exactly.
he said that he was lying.
Mine used to say all the time, he's like, you know what? Whatever. I'm sick of this. At least I know I did everything I could and I can walk away with a clear conscience. while he was lying to me and hiding the fact that he had been doing what he was doing. So the gaslighting was so severe. And then when I busted him, I'm like, really? He's, yeah, because I couldn't tell you because I knew it was going to hurt you. No, you didn't tell me because you didn't want to get busted. And you didn't tell me because you knew I'd break up with you. And you didn't tell me because you know you're a piece of shit. That's why you didn't tell me. Not because you were worried about it hurting me. You were worried about me breaking up with you, which would then hurt you. And it would affect you. Yeah.
I could talk about this for days.
We could
However,
talk about this for days.
we will. So we are coming to the end. We are going to talk about how to get out of a trauma bond, but I'm going to tell you right now, therapy, 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 therapy.
Guys, I can't stress it
Therapy.
enough. Fuck, get into therapy. Like I'm back, like, I mean, I have a therapist anyway, but I'm seeing him more than once a week at this point, right? And I'm actually doing okay in comparison to what I thought I was going to be like when I was finally, but to get out of this insidious shit show that you're in, the longer you stay, the harder it's going to be to get out of. So please, my God, please, if you are in a situation like this and you are struggling, get in to see a therapist as soon as you can and start doing the things to build your self-esteem. It will help you get out. It's the
And
only way to get out.
just like you said in the very beginning, it's not just getting out. It's now how do you heal after that? So if you start therapy, if you're already out, if you just left, if you get into therapy, I had to go to therapy after I left my ex, even though my parting of the ways was like, literally, like you said, a switch turned off. I don't fucking want to see your face ever in my life again. It just shut off. I still needed to go to therapy because just like with an addiction, like I can talk about heroin. Heroin has a 36-hour, or sorry, methadone, because I ran a methadone clinic, has a 36-hour half-life. So it will stay in your body, and then after 36 hours, half of it is gone. Alcohol, 3 days. You have 3 days of a physical addiction, and then it's out of your body. Same with heroin. All of these things have about a 3-day, and then it's out of your body. However, psychological addiction stays forever. Literally stays forever. So working through therapy makes the impact of that psychological addiction go to almost none.
Why do you think that is, Jody? Why do you think that the psychological addiction is forever versus, say, substance? I mean, substances, once they're out of your body, you don't crave the dopamine anymore, but we will always crave human connection.
Because think about it. Yeah, think about it too. Our memories, our thought process, we are our own worst enemies too. And for some reason, and I don't know why this has happened society-wise, I guess, we are so easily negative to ourselves than we are positive. Part of it is you're conceited, you're narcissistic. If you're positive, you have an ego, blah, blah, blah. So we learn to kind of be baseline or low. But we think about the past, we think about the what ifs, we think about things that sadly make us feel bad instead of good.
We're programmed that way.
Yeah. And we use substances, we use alcohol, we use sex, we use whatever to feel better than we did.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's having to get past the why we felt bad in the first place, why we felt that need in the first place, why we stayed in the relationship in the first place. And it's not an easy fix. It sometimes goes back. I am not psychoanalytic. I do not believe our first 5 years determine our entire life. I believe that our past is extremely important because it makes us who we are today. It forms our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our values, our morals, all of that. However, it's not fixed. We can change it. We get to choose tomorrow what we want to bring from today. So learning that and learning how to cope and function, and most importantly, love yourself from deep down all the way out, that helps to make that psychological addiction not happen.
Well,
Just
that's how you break the trauma bond, is finding love for yourself. And if you truly don't have it, it's so hard to break.
well, now we
So
can't have that podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
no, we can't.
We'll have that
You have to work on that. It's the loving yourself. I have a friend right now who literally is like, I don't know how. How the hell do I heal this? I'm like, well, you've got to start loving yourself. She's like, how? I'm 53 or 50 years old. How the hell do I start loving myself now? Well, you got to go to therapy and do the work. It's never worked. You've never tried. You've
And
never.
the thing is, may have taken you 53 years to get here, but I fucking guarantee, I will guarantee that if you have a good therapist that you connect with, because the best predictor of outcome of therapy is the rapport between client and clinician. So if you find yourself a good therapist, it will not take you anywhere near 53 years to get past it.
No, it won't.
Far,
You will
far less.
You will learn how to love yourself, even though you never have. But the only way to heal that psychological addiction or psychological trauma,
Wounds and trauma,
wounds and everything, is really learning how to love yourself. But adversity in childhood is really the precursor, and you can heal from it. And I totally 100% agree. You
and
can.
honestly, it doesn't have to be childhood, because I think I had a great childhood, but my husband passed away. My husband was my rock. When I
See,
my ex, I said, my husband was my rock. And he said, I want to be your rock, whatever. So don't get lulled into a false sense of security if you had a great childhood that you'll never be in a toxic relationship either.
Oh, bullshit. Oh, anybody can get duped. It doesn't matter about your childhood. But unrecovered loss, right? Like if you go with grief and unresolved loss, it's really the problem. And when you suffer a loss, you've suffered a massive loss. There is no greater pain, really, than the loss of a spouse or child. And the literature proves it. And it is brutal. My dad's going through this. He has complicated grief. I think he needs to go on SSRIs. Like literally, and it just based on your biopsychosocial, your predispositions, all these things can lead up. But when you lose a significant other or a child, the pain is just, there's no words to really describe it. And Jody, I'm sure you can speak to that.
We can do a whole podcast on this. If you guys want, let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, follow, click the button for every time we drop an episode. But I will tell you that not a day goes by that I don't think about my husband. Not a day goes by that I don't get a little teary-eyed. I cannot watch. Right now I'm watching on Netflix, I'm binging This Is Us. And I have so many issues that I know about. I've been to therapy, I've been to grief therapy and all of that. It is, and I have my son. So it's like I lost the best thing in my life to get the best thing in my life. So I deal with things, and my son is developmentally delayed. And I wonder if my depression caused that. So there's a lot. But so psychologists don't have it all together. We just know how to function and deal with, and hopefully adapt and move on and love ourselves enough that it's okay that we have flaws. It's okay that
we just learn the tools. It doesn't make us immune to this.
Resilient. We have resilience, hopefully. But so we can talk about grief. I would be happy to talk about that.
Let us know, guys, if there's topics that you are keen to know about or learn about. But
please let us know.
But we're definitely going to be talking about sex addiction and narcissism and the link between the two, because I think that's a great topic.
NPD question and answer, because I got some good questions that I've been asked that I want us to answer. I got some good ones. Seriously. More about how to get out of a trauma bond. But again, therapy. We can talk about grief. We can talk about, please comment below what you would like us to discuss if we haven't already discussed it. We like your comments. We like your feedback. Email wcwycw1@gmail.com. You got the comments, and like, follow, click the button, all of that stuff.
It's been great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you later.
We will see you soon.
Bye.